unconscious and implicit bias. Before we begin our training, we want to explain what unconscious and implicit bias is. Unconscious and implicit bias refers to the various social stereotypes and judgment that people unknowingly assign to others based on a variety of factors such as their age, socioeconomic status, weight, gender, race, or sexual orientation. Training to eliminate unconscious and implicit bias aims to uncover and identify the subconscious ways in which we engage in biases or oppressive behavior and practices.
Here are some tactics that we recommend to stop unconscious and implicit bias in order for it to relate to students currently. Picture that you're working at an internship. First, learn what unconscious biases are. Make students across all levels of your organization aware that biases exist. Assess which biases are likely to affect you and your company during your internship. Biases tend to affect who gets hired, who gets promoted, who gets raises, and who gets what kind of work. Do an internal analysis of touch points. Train employees of your internship to identify and combat biases by being empathetic and speaking up when necessary. And modernize the hiring process. Don't discourage people in job descriptions. Give sample assignments to employees so that they can see what work positions will be like and make an interview process.
Having a safe place where people can go to if they feel like they are being treated unjustly. Hold yourself accountable. Overcome denial and be aware that there is an issue and it needs to break the stereotype. Encourage interactions among people from different groups. Expand inner circles and encourage employees to track their integrations. Branch out and don't be afraid to meet new people. Make it a priority. Encourage good practices and continued learning. Commit to improvement and then find a mentor and solicit feedback. Make goals for diversity, equality, and inclusion to show why we participate in creating a diverse workplace.
Types of unconscious bias that students experience at internships and at work post graduation.
Affinity bias, the gravitation towards people who are like us. An example of this can be a hiring manager gravitating toward a candidate because they share the same interests, such as reading, working out, or watching movies.
Appearance bias, judgment based on appearance. An example of this can be when a hiring manager is more inclined to hire candidates because they are good looking. Examples: beauty bias, weight bias, weight bias.
Confirmation bias, tendency to seek out and interpret new information in a way that confirms that you already believe. An example that can be when an employee comes up with a product idea, and even though the market research shows little interest in the product, they try to validate the idea by reaching out to friends who they know will support it.
Authority bias, the tendency to place more weight on the opinion or idea of an authority figure. An example can be if a team member unquestionably follows their manager's instructions to write a report in a way that matches the manager's instructions.
Gender bias, the favoring of one gender over another, also referred to as sexism. It occurs when someone associates certain stereotypes with different genders. An example of this can be bias during the hiring of female candidates, even though they have similar skills and experiences.
Age bias, discrimination against others based on their age, often coming from older team members. An example of this can be when an older team member was passed over for a promotion, which ended up going to a younger team member with less experience and seniority.
The horns effect, a negative impression of someone based on one trait or experience. An example of this can be when a new employee thinks the constructive criticism they receive from their manager is harsh and their manager is a critical and mean person. Why it's important to tackle unconscious biases. These examples show that unconscious biases can hinder decision making, impact team dynamics and leadership styles, and limit company diversity. This, in turn, can reduce equal opportunities for team members and job applicants. Tackling unconscious biases can help address these issues and improve company diversity.
For this brief intermission, please pause the slides. You guys can click the link to test your knowledge with our Kahoot.
Before we start our bias simulation, we want to address that this scenario can be applied to Lake Forest College in terms of internships and clubs. This scenario will include a manager being an employee who receives bias, Anna, an employee who's a bystander, Greta, and an employee who advocates for the employee that receives bias, Steve.
I am the manager of this firm that hires interns. Some qualities that describe me are that I'm always correct, never wrong, and that I mention that I'm always correct. Today I hired a new employee to join our team. Her name is Anna.
I was recently hired to work for this firm, and I'm so excited to start this journey. I hope to succeed in everything that I do, and I'm happy to move on to this next step of my life.
Time goes by and an employee who receives bias has made some friends in the workplace.
Hey Steve, I noticed that you made a joke the other day about how much you're making here. It appears that our salaries are different even though we're doing the same job.
Yeah, I'm making 25 an hour. How much are you making?
What? I make 18.
Well, you're probably not doing the job correctly then.
I don't think she's doing a worse job than you. In fact, I've noticed that our manager has a lot of sexist comments towards you. Does that make you feel as though you're being discriminated against?
Yes, it often makes me feel uncomfortable, but I'm afraid to say something.
I understand. Do you want me to come with you to speak to the manager? Hey, Steve, do you want to come with?
No, I'm good. I don't want to risk my job, to be honest.
That's unjust. As fellow employees, we should advocate for each other.
I appreciate your concerns, Greta, but I think I'm going to go to the manager by myself. Thank you for your support, though. I truly appreciate it.
Manager calls in the employee who received bias into his office.
Hello, Anna. It has come to my attention that you are telling people that you are getting discriminated against in this workplace.
Yes, I feel as though sometimes you make sexist jokes, like the other day you didn't address a single woman in the room, and we all sat in the back. I raised my hand and you ignored my question.
I apologize. My goal is to make this workplace more ethical and efficient. I will work on my delivery. I think we should start having training sessions to make sure this doesn't happen again, and so that we can encourage diversity in the workplace. My goal here is to make sure everyone feels included. I also want to raise your salary because I realize what I have done is unjust.
What we can gather from this simulation is that it's important to recognize biases in the workplace so employees like Anna don't feel like they're getting discriminated against. This simulation embodied gender bias with Steve getting paid more than Anna, as well as the manager Dean who made sexist jokes towards Anna. Advocate for yourself and others you notice when you notice these sorts of biases occurring at your workplace, whether that be as in your internship or your job post graduation from college.
Thank you for listening.